agency. Once again, this is Thursday, July 11th, our monthly meeting. Privilege of the floor.
May I take a second, Mr. Chairman, to introduce Ed Valentine? Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, didn't mean to jump in. Ed, I don't know, for those of you who do not know him, I'm surprised, but anyway, he is one of our leading business individuals in the county, but he's also a tenant in our corporate park. So Ed and I have been having several discussions about a variety of things, and we're glad to see him here this morning. Ed, thanks for being here. Sorry, you didn't do that too.
Hey, you want a copy? Minutes from our last meeting. We all received in your packet. Is there any additions and or corrections?
Motion to accept this presented.
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Treasurer's report.
Page 6, your board packet, excuse me, as you go across the funds, in total, we're $263,000 lower than prior month. Most of it's from the unrestricted funds, about $250,000 of it, and then 18-ish from pilot, and then there's a little puts and takes to equal the balance. Total assets are down $240,000 from prior month. Total current liability is down $185,000. Again, most of it's from the unrestricted fund portion. Again, most of it are other puts and takes from the other funds. The fund balance in total is down $53,000 from prior month. Page 7 of our board packet. Before I go through the numbers, Lyle, did the Apex thing get sorted out?
Yes.
Last meeting it came up, so we're totally billed out at whatever the hell number.
We are
1175.
finished with Apex,
Okay.
as far as I know, unless something else
Because it
comes
seemed
up.
like you had another invoice to go, and I didn't think this
Well,
number
we
changed.
thought we did, but
Okay,
it turns
that's
out we
fine.
didn't.
So we're good there, so that's just, we won't see activity there. So as we go down through the budget for the year, to break even, if everything were linear, is about $85,000 a month. We're currently averaging about $95,000 a month, which is misleading because we have a couple of large one-time fees that get diluted as you get to 12 months versus 9 months. But as you come through, it is possible we may not actually achieve what's budgeted, but we might be 20% below that if all things work out well.
Hopefully we'll be
Kind of
close,
looking
yes.
at 115 is a target at this point, so it won't be terrible there. As we go down through the operational expenses, excuse me, again, if everything were linear, about $90,500 per month average for break even. We're actually only spending about $85,000 a month, so we're doing a little bit better there. End of year projection, if we do not have to exercise bad debt, is about $975,000. So revenue over expenses could be a surplus, and even with bad debt, it might be close to break even, if one bad debt. Not all.
The one bad debt that I was anticipating is outperforming my expectations.
Yes, I saw that.
Yeah.
That's a good thing.
Yes.
But I'm sure somebody will fill the void. It's
Oh, I'm
always,
sure.
They always
chaos always wins.
Yeah.
So as we go down through revenue over expenses, it is possible to have $165,000 to $190,000 surplus at the end of the year. It's possible. I'm not saying
It's
I'm
possible,
not saying it's
probably
gonna
not
happen.
probable.
Otherwise, I'd be not sitting here. I'd be in the Bahamas because I trade so well on the stock market because I have a crystal ball. Page 9 of our board packet, balance sheet. Quick assets, we're down $216,000 from prior month. Receivables down $48,000 from prior month, and then the miscellaneous stuff changed about $2,000. Total assets are down about $250,000 from prior month. Total current liabilities down $185,000 from prior month. Page 10, total capital down $53,000 from prior month. 13, 14 are just snapshots of whom we've loaned money to, and as Lyle already gave us a segue, Wright Brothers went from 3 months past due to just one, and its last payment is 2 weeks ago, so that's a good catch up. That's great. I'm
Yes, it
sure
is.
you and your brothers really strong-armed him a little bit.
Well, actually, I think it was Kim over at the trust that did it.
So anyway, the total outstanding monies are well less than 1% of total receivables. So there's nothing significant to report there this particular month. Micro enterprise, again, we make note that somehow we've got to find a way to replenish a new program that mimics this. We have $41,000 to loan, and that's probably one applicant or two applicants based on past precedents. Lyric has kind of stayed the same. They're 2 months past due. Again, the total receivables are about, delinquent receivables are about less than 1% of the total receivables. Page 18, just as a question for you, Lyle. You mentioned Benchmark is delinquent on your report, and it might just be a timing issue because it looks like they were under Lyric, but you removed them?
Yes, they were.
Okay.
They did catch up.
Okay, so the report was published before this, I'm guessing?
Yes, it was, yeah. Yeah, we were developing this for the Authority Budget
Yeah.
Office.
By the way, for whatever it is worth, Benchmark is one of those absolutely wonderful stories that this agency saved. By virtue of its work with them 3 or 4 years ago, they are now doing very well. They now have employment of 70 or so professionals, and they are providing major services to our school districts. So I think occasionally it's good for the board to hear that sometimes taking risks pays off in a big way, and that's one good example of that.
So that's my report. I'll make a motion to accept it as presented.
I have a motion and a second. Any further questions?
Did anything change with the Wright brothers and,
We don't know. We were expecting one, well, we had correspondence that indicated, well, maybe I'll send you some money next week if I have any, not sure of how much. So that's essentially what they said. They sent us 3 months' payment, so, very surprised. Now, I don't know if anything happened. The only thing I know that happened is they lost a transportation contract in the city, and that should have a negative impact on them, I think, but we'll see what happens going forward.
Both the trust and this agency are keeping pressure on them to the extent that we can. It's a community agency and one
Well, I mean,
have great value.
they're kind of, as Paul said earlier, they're at their new norm, 1 month behind is kind of a new norm where we didn't.
Well, their insurance reimbursements, if you sit down, if you want to hear their side of the story, they're at least 120 day out on many of these reimbursements, and it's hurting cash flow.
Benchmark had the same problem.
Same problem. Yeah,
The reimbursement from the state was so slow to get back.
it kills them.
On the motion to approve, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries, thank you. Loan review.
And I get to keep talking. So, we have our minutes. I do have some corrections to the minutes, so I'll kind of go through those. The minutes are very clear. There's really a joint committee meeting between alternative energy and loan review. We just called it loan review. We met one applicant, Oya, who's here presently, and they're being considered for a resolution later in this meeting. We went through their project in great detail, very revealing with a lot of information. We had some good discussions about some of the attributes, which would be outside of just financial payments. There's some other areas that were discussed that would have some benefits to the county and the county residents. And then we went through some numbers and looked at things, and I think from there it broke away, and Bill already covered those. The county is now taking over, looking at what their temperance or tolerance is for how to put together what we'll call the whole pilot program. I believe I overheard there are some letters of support that are in hand now between the towns and the school. So that was a takeaway. So the few corrections or additions I would suggest at the bottom of page 21, page 1 of the report, there should just be a $ sign in front of Peggy. says $27,000 divided by 5 megawatts equals a number, it should be a dollar value per megawatt, so it should be $55,496 per megawatt. I think you'd love to produce 5,496 megawatts. I think also a couple important things that were left out of here that I believe are important, and the rest of the board can agree or disagree. It was suggested that permits were in place and seeker was conducted. It was suggested during our meeting that the decommissioning bonds are in place. It was suggested during our meeting that the proposed site is not prime agricultural land. And I think those were three things that I reported that I thought were important. And I'll let the board decide if they are corrections that should be added. And then the only other thing was the 5,496 per megawatt is plus or minus 40% of full taxation. I made a note of that as well. Again, I'll leave it to the board if they decide that that's important or not to add to the minutes. So that's the committee report, and I'll let you handle it from here, Mr. Chair, if the corrections get made.
Can I ask a question of the developer?
Sure.
Was his comments on seeker, his impressions on seeker being complete and that the decommissioning bonds are in place, was that accurate?
Seeker is complete to go on the decommissioning bond. It's been posted.
It will be posted when the building permit is
Yeah.
pulled.
Seeker was completed by the planning board when they did the review, but if this agency wasn't included as an involved agency, we're gonna have to do our own.
Okay.
And I don't know whether they were or not, I doubt it,
If we didn't receive a
right?
notice.
We should have received a notice, we did not.
Is that what you're referring
No,
to? Maybe I'm
No.
the State Environmental Quality Review Act, the review that was done by the planning board to complete the seeker for the project, they have to notify all the involved agencies that are gonna be involved in any aspect of the project for an approval. And if an involved agency wasn't notified, then they either have to go back and redo seeker, or we have to do our own seeker.
Would it be as extensive as the town seeker?
No, it doesn't have to be. As a matter of fact, we can adopt the town's seeker, we just have to go through the process.
I suggest that we have staff send out a letter to all our towns and notify them that
Anytime there's a potential for a pilot.
going forward, that we need, on any of these projects, we need to be included as
Yeah. We run into it with Luray before too.
just a matter of them including us in
The letter.
the letter.
So when the permit's issued, the bond will be in place, would be an accurate statement. Rob?
And I think the permit can't be issued because there's no zoning currently in Clayton. I think it's Clayton.
No, Clayton's approved the project.
Yeah.
Both Clayton and Orleans.
They don't have a solar zoning law.
They don't need one. They
Okay.
approved it under their existing.
But I had some
They-
different information
They're in
from
the
their
process
planning
of
board.
adopting a solar law.
That's why I had some different
But they approved
information.
this under
from
their
their plan.
existing,
Okay.
as a public utility.
That's my misunderstanding, and I thought there was some work to be done.
No,
to-
not with respect to this project.
Okay, perfect.
So if there's no objections to those wordings, I'll move the amendments to the minutes.
Second.
Your motion in a second, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
I have one abstention, because I'm on the county planning board, and I think you've already come before the board, so, thank you.
New business, we have a property management agreement. Any changes from the?
No, I think it's really basically an extension of an existing agreement, which has heretofore worked very well. We really have no complaints anytime there's any issues, they're easily resolved. I don't know how long this agreement will stay in place, but there is a provision for a mutual discontinuance if it's necessary when the building is, whatever we do with the building, if there are changes necessary, we can either amend or change, but would strongly recommend that we execute again for the next period, whatever that is.
I entertain a motion in a second.
I make a motion to accept the property maintenance agreement with WIC LDC as presented.
Discussion?
Just one quick question. So there is a clause in here, so let's say we decide to sell the building ultimately, that this, we can get out of this agreement.
We can.
Okay.
And Billy is very well aware of the circumstances. As a matter of fact, he's been assisting as we look at the structure of the building and so on, because he's certainly more versed in what that building looks like from the skeletal forms than I am, so he's aware of all of it.
On the motion, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Second? Yes, second. How's that looking? Abstain? Any abstain?
Not this one.
All in favor, aye?
Dave, I had a couple things that actually probably fall under unfinished business. They're probably yes or no, a couple quick things. Any updates on Autumn Ridge? Any updates on that?
No
Anything that
updates.
we need to
The taxes have all been paid, and I've been in contact with the receiver,
Okay.
who's Pyramid actually.
So it's status
So
quo.
we're good to go.
Okay. Any, I guess, any updates on the property in Mansville that was discussed a while ago?
Well, we talked about that at staff meeting last Monday. We're collecting information now, and we'll put together something of an initial marketing effort. What frankly is going to need to happen is we're going to have to do some evaluation of the property. We want to know what land is actually marketable, what resources we have on the land. Part of the plan was, with permission from the county, because we're working side by side with them, would be to look at the timber resources and see if there's some value there that we can then, clear the land and use that as part of our marketing budget, because we hadn't anything specifically designed for that. So, moving along.
Okay. And this is probably not for council, but I know you were working with Mr. Lundy's counsel,
With his
I
attorney,
think.
he and I have talked, we haven't got
So
documentation done
it's
yet,
moving
yeah.
along as well. It's not
Our
concluded, but-
respective schedules haven't allowed us to finish it
Okay.
up, but we've agreed to agree.
And,
That's rare for an attorney, isn't it?
and the last one, I swear, is absolutely coincidental. Mr. Valentine is here. I had to note about any updates on that meeting we had with the park tenants and the traffic study and like the whole variety of things.
Well, there is a couple of things. Mr. Valentine has been attending routinely the town meetings and expressing concerns or interest maybe, and I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, Ed, so if I'm out of school. We've also made a proposal to DOT with respect to some traffic pattern changes. We're trying to find a couple of solutions. They may be initial solutions, but we are trying. There was a development yesterday, which I'm not even sure Ed knows yet, related to the pending suit between PJ Simeo and the county, which I don't pretend to be the expert on, so I prefer not to get into that, just to say that, as I understand it, there may be some delay in addressing that question. So I don't know what that means yet. Ed, I'm kind of saying this to you, but if you want to.
I guess the main thing, communication is continuing. Everybody's at least talking to each other again and
Yes.
moving. That's the main thing.
I think the town of Watertown has been really receptive. I think it's longer term, it's a slow process, as you guys probably know, so I think we're working on a comprehensive plan at the same time, so I think we're probably a year out, but they welcome us being actively involved and, like you said, keep the communication going.
That's the
As
main
far
thing.
as the DOT, I'd like to still continue building from, I guess, more pressure from below, whether it's coming from the town or the JCIDA or tenants of the park, to try and pressure the DOT to at least react to some of the suggestions we made. So I think that's ongoing.
These are, in our view, by the way, suggestions in traffic pattern changes that would not require a great deal of construction or any of that kind of thing. They're mainly,
Lines.
they're mainly just looking at the thing and saying logically it makes better sense to do it this way. Obviously, there's other questions out here. There was some talk about a turn lane coming off 81. There's all kinds of complications, but all of those discussions are still pending because we can't really get into it because of the issue of the court proceedings that anybody and everybody is saying we can't really sit down and do anything until we get the court issue resolved, and apparently that's going to be delayed again. So that's about all we've got for this morning, I think.
Anything else, Rob?
No, thank you. That was longer than I anticipated, but.
Good question.
Gentlemen, thank you for your patience. So, we have resolution 07.11.2019.01. The resolution of Jefferson County Industrial Development Agency determining that a certain application submitted by Oya Great Lakes Seaway LLC, Oya Blanchard Road LLC, Oya Blanchard Road LLC, Oya New York State Route 12 LLC, and Oya Blanchard Road 2 LLC, collectively the company requesting a leaseback transaction in connection with proposed solar energy facility to be constructed by the company on parcels 20.00-1-28 in the town of Clayton, and on parcels 13.00-2-51, 13.00-2-53, and 13.00-2-47.1 in the town of Orleans.
Would you repeat that, Dave?
Can I ask a question, Dave?
Yes.
The very first part of that resolution doesn't really make sense. Are we resolving to accept it?
The official resolution is being passed around.
I have it.
Oh, you
It
have a
was
copy?
put in our revised
Then
board packet.
Talk to the council.
Okay. I'm just curious why it doesn't say we're accepting a certain application. Determining that a certain application submitted by, and then it doesn't say anything else.
It
other
should
than-
have his complete at the end.
Okay.
So.
Somewhere I thought we were resolving that we're accepting it, correct?
Well,
This is on the second whereas.
I know it's in the whereas, but it just.
On the second page now thereof
Yep.
being resolved, number 1.
If it doesn't need to be corrected, that's fine. It seemed like an incomplete sentence.
I drafted it myself yesterday afternoon, so.
So if there's any blame to be,
Robin's on vacation.
He was otherwise engaged.
Should we add the word
Yeah, it's
accept,
com-
except that
Yeah, you can add,
accepting
you can add
a
the
certain,
word, you
somewhere
can
in
add the
there?
word to make the sentence complete,
Okay.
certainly.
I'm lost. Where are we?
Says it
Outlined
everywhere
in the
else.
chart, the bold section you're gonna add is
It's complete at the
on
end.
Oh, on the beginning.
So
I move the resolution with the one amendment to add is complete.
I would
I have
second
some
that.
questions too afterwards, David.
Okay, so we have a motion, we have a second. Discussion?
Back when we met with you earlier, I raised some questions about some issues in the appraisal. I think I carboned everyone on the email because that one got me a call from the appraiser, and I went over my concerns, and I believe they were going to issue some changes to the appraisal. Have you seen those yet?
Yes, we sent it through late last night.
So we have that now?
Late last night, it was like at 10 p.m.
Okay.
I sent it over.
Okay, so we have it?
Yeah.
That was my main
And
question.
I think I overheard earlier that they did obtain the letters of support from the towns and the school.
Okay.
That was
My
one
only
action item
questions.
from the board.
support for us to pursue the
Correct,
project.
yeah,
Right.
support to actually enter into.
Engage in the
discussion.
process.
Engage in the process, yeah, I
Right.
shouldn't over sensationalize what the support was.
That's
I
all
get
I
in
was
trouble
asking
when I do
for, I think, is that they are open
Well,
to
and
discussion.
that for everyone here was due to the fact that those towns don't recognize the New York State solar wind exemption. We want to ensure that if we invest time in doing this, they
Right.
aren't just going to say no.
A blanket no, right?
So, those are my questions and they've been answered. That's it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Sure. Other questions? We have our developers that have been sitting here for the last hour with us.
By the way, let me just do a little propagandizing. In this role, over the last several years, you deal with a lot of developers, and there are developers that you find a good deal to enjoy working with, and then there are those that are really difficult. Greg and company have been exceptional to work with. So as a starting point anyway, and that's where we are this morning, as a starting point, I want to thank you for being forthcoming and agreeing and trying to pave the way to make this happen. Could go the other way, we appreciate it.
We appreciate the kind words, and we're anxious to get the discussions underway and find our way to a conclusion as quickly as possible.
That was my next thing, is that by accepting this application, that allows the process to move forward. It's not, we're not saying that we're giving an approval or that anything like that. It's just, it's the process that allows staff to work with the municipalities and the developer and try to develop to a, successful end, one way or the other, so. With that, any other questions or comments? Roll call vote, please.
Dave,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Rob,
Yes.
Ed is absent, Lisa,
Abstain.
Paul,
Yes.
Bill.
Yes.
Resolution carries. We have an application and the process to go forward.
Fantastic. Thank you.
If I may make one other observation. Staff sometimes gets put in an interesting position trying to resolve all this, but compliments to Bill and Paul, who have jumped into the fray here on a very difficult question. This issue of how we tax alternative energy projects in the county is very difficult, because no matter how you slice it, there is no formula that works perfectly. It just doesn't. It's not the way it is. And yet, yesterday, or pardon me, the day before, these two were able to sit down with the county and begin to resolve some of the issues which seems to be hanging out there. And we need to do that. If we're going to make this community grow, we've got to find solutions to these problems. And I can't do it, staff can't do it by ourselves, but policymakers like Bill and Paul can do that. And so although I disagree sometimes with what is done, that's not my role. And I thank them for taking this on and making it work. So,
I'll echo that. We're grateful and encouraged certainly by the conversations we've had with both Paul and Bill.
Well, there's challenges ahead.
Of
There's no
course.
question about it, but.
Of course. But with the right mindset towards trying to find a solution, that,
I would echo what Don said. We've met with another solar developer and a wind developer, and you guys have been the easiest for us to sit and feel like we're getting straight answers, and you've answered openly and straightforward all our questions, and I think that has a lot to go with how quick this resolution went through.
fantastic.
So, we appreciate the openness, because we have tough decisions and discussions to have with the taxing jurisdictions, and that makes it easier.
And well, in our opinion, it's the only way, those types of discussions, because it is complicated and it is challenging. And without a frank discussion with sort of cards on the table, these types of projects will never get across the finish line.
We're learning. I mean,
Yep.
we met with another solar developer, and Bill and I are sitting there trying, scratching our heads, looking at the appraisals and the outputs, and then you explain
would be.
about how they're tracking and the difference it makes and all those type of issues. So just between community solar projects, we have huge differences.
Right.
So, thank you.
Thank you.
I would also add, I traveled down to the southern tier last couple of days, and it just caught my attention that how many solar farms there are down in the state. So whether they're all being piloted or not, I don't know, but I'm just saying that this industry is significantly taking off in the state.
We have executed pilots in Orange County. Yeah.
I think, John, that is an excellent point, and Bill and Paul and I talked a little bit about that. I mean, as a strategy, this board has for years indicated that alternative energies are one of the best potentials for economic development, just, you know, improving the base for our community. And it's not a perfect world by any stretch, but I think you can see that other counties too are now beginning to understand the value of all of this, and staff knows some stuff that's kind of going on behind the scenes, which I think will lead us to an even improving environment for these types of projects. And it's not a perfect world. We're very concerned, and Jake could jump in anywhere, we're very concerned about making sure we don't utilize too much of our prime farmland for this kind of development.
Right.
That, you know, we find a way to be compatible with this development and with our all important agricultural community. There are a lot of factors at work here, and so it's not a simple question. It becomes more complicated every day, but we've started the dialogue, and we now, I think, have a better handle on what the future holds for our community. So we're hopeful anyway.
Counselor?
I have nothing else.
I have a couple of pieces of business. One, I sent you all an email day before yesterday revealing that Tori at the county has once again requested our input on the county budget deliberations coming up. And that means, are we interested as a board in asking for an increase of some level for the stipends provided by the county toward our operations? As you remember, we do essentially the marketing for the county, and we receive money for that. We also get a subsidy in support of the agricultural programs, both of which, by the way, we tend to subsidize with our own resources. So the county does not provide 100% of those numbers, but it's clearly very important amounts of those programs. So the question I've asked the board in the email is your pleasure on should we pursue a modest increase, and nobody's suggesting a large increase by any stretch. We have not requested an increase from the county in a decade. We've received, 2 years ago, we received a 2% increase in those areas, as did all of the agencies who serve in the county's interest. So at this point in time, I have received some comment back from some of you, and you have indicated that you think it is time for us to consider a modest increase. And nobody has put a number on that, but that seems to be your pleasure. So if anybody wants to weigh in on this, if you prefer not to discuss it in the open like this and just send me an email, but a consensus would be very helpful.
I'll throw something out.
Sure,
Why not,
please.
as part of the increase, segregate those funds to replenish the new microenterprise loan fund? It's part of the marketing for businesses. I know it's not, I know you can't call it a microenterprise thing, but we have to somehow fund that new account.
Well, both of, this is, you know. me
However
talking,
you spend the money, it's gonna go into general
Right.
funds, but if, I agree with a modest increase, but segregate some of that. Kill two
Well,
birds with
we
one
can
stone.
do that, or we could ask for
Through the
additional
LTC,
support in some
yeah.
other
So
way.
just a suggestion, I don't know the semantics of how that
We
would work.
can't do that through the IDA, we can maybe through the LDC.
Was it, is the microenterprise in the LTC?
No,
No.
it's IDA.
No, but-
They're all IDA loans.
The
Okay.
RD
But it's a source of the
but
funds that are the
Okay.
issue. So-
Okay,
The issue,
wherever the funds go then, but I guess it's the same point, if we can get some chunk of money that can be the new microenterprise funds. I don't know what you call the new thing.
well, we have to, you're right, we have to find a source of that, in my opinion.
Because it's not coming from within.
Well, it can't. I mean, we're not generating the type of income that I would like to see for a variety of reasons, having to do with the influence of pilots these days, and our interest rates now are much more competitive with bank rates
So
and
it's a
so on.
yes,
So there's
yes
all-
with a twist.
Yeah, the only problem with that is that, in my opinion, both on the marketing side and the ag side, we actually have more opportunity for spending money and more ways that we think we probably could improve what we do had we had more money. So in other words, we're spending not only at the upper level of the stipend provided by the county, but in typical ways substituting that, supplementing that with our own funds. So if we were to take some of that money and move it to some other location, not sure the impact of that. But again, that's a decision you guys would certainly want to make. But as a general rule, if you think that we should consider a modest increase or a small increase, I will work with staff, try to put something together and make some suggestions. Otherwise, if you think we shouldn't, then we won't spend the time. So whatever. And if you want to not discuss this at the moment, just send me an email. Again, this is really a function of staff with your guidance, so we can take it from there if you can just give me some sense of what you want to do. And the other piece of this is not really for this meeting, but I'm not sure we want to schedule another meeting. I'm not sure where we are, forgotten, lost, actually. The civic facility bond issue, we have the concern about the college, which I also want to talk about, Mr. Chairman, whether we do it in this meeting or hold another special meeting. So we don't have that one scheduled, but I think it's important we have a timing related to that. And that is, very frankly, the college wants to refinance its bonds
3 months out.
because bond interest rates have changed. They think they can get a reduction in the cost of those bonds. Our question that I would propose, I would like to suggest to the board that we not add an additional fee to the college for making these changes. Staff will do it along with all the attorneys and so on. And but I think that the college provides its maintenance fees every year as part of the deal we arranged years ago. And I think that should be sufficient, if you'll allow me that opinion, so as not to charge them an additional fee for going back and refinancing through the bonds. But that is a call the board will have to make. So.
Maintenance fee versus, I mean, would they pick up the direct costs of the issuance and all that?
All the rest of the costs will be.
It's just a fee one.
Yeah.
It's just a fee to
It's
run.
just our
It's a
fee.
fee above actual cost.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
Not for nothing, but I'm okay with that as long as the direct costs are picked up.
I
I'm not
totally
charging
agree.
a
Makes
fee.
sense.
I totally agree.
Okay, that's great. Everybody.
When you need an official vote, call me.
Well, we have to have an official meeting.
Yeah,
but
We
We'll
do,
have
we
to-
have to have that.
If we have an understanding that, that's the direction we want to go, then I think that John can work with that
I
and
can work with that.
put together, then
We'll have to come back to you with these modifications anyway.
I would assume probably August.
We hope to have it in August so they can make the transition in September. That's the plan.
Motion to adjourn if we're done.
Second.
All in favor?
That's
That was quick.